Peterson turned at the bridge, then slowly started driving back down Main Street. Again our eyes scanned the Eagle's Nest. Except for Patty Page replacing Johnny Ray with Tennessee Waltz, the place was the same as a minute ago, dead as a doornail. No one was milling about. Main Street was empty. Being Sunday, the businesses were all closed. But as we drove past the narrow barber shop that was squeezed between the hardware store and the pool room, I could vision my tall, lean father standing behind the barber chair with a heap of hair clippings of every shade at his feet, and me scooted back in the waiting chair with feet dangling because my legs were too short for my feet to touch the floor. I thought back to those long ago days when I would sit in the shop the day long, quiet as a mouse, listening to men talk while I waited for Daddy to end his day's work and flip the door sign from open to close. After pulling the blind, he'd place a board across the arms of the chair and lift me up on it. He'd then pump the chair to the sky where I could see myself in the tall mirrors. As I tried to count the many reflections of me in the looking glass, Daddy counted the day's earnings to take home to Mother. When he'd finish, he'd pull the chair lever and bring me back down to earth and lift me off the seat. He'd pull the light string, leaving only a narrow wattage bulb burning over the back stand. Then we'd exit the shop, hand in hand, and start our 2-mile walk home. On snowy winter nights, my toes would be frozen by the time we'd get to the house, where a warm fire and a hot cooked meal waited. On our way into the house, Daddy would knock down an icicle that hung from the porch roof. Inside, he'd wrap strips of newspaper around the fat end, and then he'd hand it to me to suck while he took off my shoes and socks and stuck my ice-cold feet up to the heater to warm them before he sat down to eat. There were 3 of us children then. My beautiful raven-haired sister Maureen was 16. My dark, handsome brother J.D., who looked enough like my sister to be her twin, was 15. Disgracing the family but being born a redhead was me, a stubborn 3-year-old. My younger brother Kenneth was not born until 4 years later with hair redder than mine. I was still going down memory lane, even after Lib got past the squeeze-in shop that I would always think of as belonging to my daddy, whose soft hands smelled of hair tonic and talcum powder. 4 doors down from the barber shop was the A&P, where my friend Wally worked in the meat department. On the other side of the street was a funeral home that took care of the arrangements when my sister's 3-week-old infant died from the outbreak of impetigo that spread quickly in the Hazard Hospital nursery and claimed the lives of all the newborns. Here I am, on my way to be a nurse, who one day may have to say to a grieving family, "I'm so sorry, there was nothing we could do to save your loved one. I won't be able to do it. Why am I in this car? I don't want to be a nurse." As if she read my thoughts of doubt, Anna Jane looked over at me and said, smiling, "You'll make a great nurse. You'll see." Sunday was bleak and dismal. The heavy gloom that descended blocked out the sun, turning the sky an ashen gray. It was nearing 5 when Wally turned off Newburgh Road and took the inclined driveway that led to the address I had been given. "Surely this is not the place," I said, rechecking the paper I had been given and looking again at the rusty metal house numbers nailed above the door. I knew we were at the right place. My home for the next 3 months would be this deteriorating old 2-story frame building, which in centuries past had housed the insane. I could picture Lizzie Borden waiting inside with an axe. A shiver went down my spine. Before getting out of the car, I looked around. A football field distance or more to the left stood another building, which I assumed to be Our Lady of Peace. On the front lawn was a statue facing Newburgh Road with its stone arms outstretched. The newly built three-story structure sat on a slope high above the poured asphalt that had been marked off in parking spacing. The few cars parked there were the only sign of life. No one came in or out the doors. Nothing could be seen at the windows. The stillness was eerie. My eyes came back to take in the picture before me. Aged oaks and maples stood firmly on a packed ground. Nights of frost had forced the giants to drop their foliage. The only evidence that a leaf had ever been on the trees was seeing one or two caught from their fall by the long, crooked fingers of the bare branches. The oaks and maples belonged here. Suffering would come to them when the north wind blew her angry breath. Fingers that would become brittle from the cold would break off, and the giant stood a chance of losing an arm from lifting the massive weight of ice and cold that would arrive to be held. Yes, the trees would feel great pain this winter, but if they could endure until spring, they would come alive again.